Light them all up.
Collateral murder.
Come on, fire!
The gunning down of unarmed civilians in a Baghdad street.
Clear.
And the Afghan war logs. With Assange now working on the release of the biggest and most sensitive cache of US cables yet, Sweden issued an Interpol red notice for his arrest.
You only need to look at the way that red notices are used around the world. Red notices are normally the preserve of terrorists and dictators. The president of Syria does not have a red notice alert. Gaddafi in Libya, at the same time Julian's arrest warrant was issued, was not subject to a red notice, but an orange notice. It was incredibly unusual that a red notice would be sought for an allegation of this kind.
The timing of the red notice could not have been worse. US Army soldier Bradley Manning had allegedly leaked more than 250,000 classified documents, and Julian Assange was anxious to get them out. They became known as Cablegate.
There are so many thousands of stories that have come from that and have influenced elections and have been involved in the course of revolutions.
The United States strongly condemns the illegal disclosure of classified information. It puts people's lives in danger, threatens our national security, and undermines our efforts to work with other countries to solve shared problems.
An outraged Washington set up a crack team of Pentagon investigators to take on WikiLeaks. It even launched a legally questionable financial blockade to starve WikiLeaks of funds. For America, Cablegate was the final straw. Some even wanted Assange dead.
This guy's a traitor, a treasonist, and he has broken every law of the United States. The guy ought to be, and I'm not for the death penalty, so if I'm not for the death penalty, the only one to do it, illegally shoot the son of a.
Well, what about it? This little punk, now I stand up for Obama. Obama, if you're listening tonight, you should take this guy out, have the CIA take him off.
If Assange was looking for support from home, he didn't get it.
You know, I absolutely condemn the placement of this information on the WikiLeaks website. It's a grossly irresponsible thing to do and an illegal thing to do.
Assange's primary concern is that the Australian government has never properly addressed the central question, the near certainty that a grand jury is investigating WikiLeaks and the possibility of him being charged.
We are very concerned about the prospect of potential extradition to the US. We need only look to the treatment of Bradley Manning. He's been held in pre-trial detention for more than 2 years now, in conditions for a large part of that detention which the UN Special Rapporteur said amount to torture. We are very concerned about the prospect of him ending up in the US, and the risk of onward extradition from Sweden was always a concern and remains a concern.
Once in Sweden, he'd be at the mercy of a system which has a record of complying with US wishes. And there's evidence that Sweden has acted illegally in past extraditions involving the US.
Sweden has frankly always been the United States lapdog, and it's not a matter we are particularly proud of. The Swedish government has essentially, whenever US official says jump, the Sweden government asks how high.
If that seems like a heavy-handed comment, there's evidence to back it up.
There was a famous case last decade where a couple of Swedish citizens were even renditioned by the CIA in a quite torturous manner to Egypt, where they were tortured further, which goes against every part of Swedish legislation, every international agreement on human rights, and not to say human dignity.
A United Nations investigation later found against Sweden. The country was forced to pay compensation. For Assange, coupled with his other experiences of the Swedish judicial system, it is perhaps understandable that he fears ending up in Sweden.
For me, the question really is, if I'm sitting in Julian Assange's position, I'd be very, very nervous because the United States gets their hands on you in this case, and you're a goner. So, you know, what I get asked all the time is, well, how do you know? To me, the question isn't how I know. I know there's a lot of evidence out there that it looks like that. To me, the burden should be on the United States government to say, we are not planning to prosecute Julian Assange. If they just gave that assurance, I can guarantee you that Julian Assange would go to Sweden tomorrow.